This is Chapter 6 of Following the Equator. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Following the Equator by Mark Twain, Chapter 6. Missionaries Obstruct Business, The Sugar Planter and the Kanaka, The Planter's View, Civilizing the Kanaka, The Missionary's View, The Result, Repentant Kanakas, Wrinkles, The Death Rate in Queensland. He was as shy as a newspaper is when referring to its own merits. Pudd'nhead Wilson's New Calendar. Captain Wawn is crystal clear on one point. He does not approve of missionaries. They obstruct his business. They make recruiting, as he calls it, slave-catching, as they call it in their frank way, a trouble when it ought to be just a picnic and a pleasure excursion. The missionaries have their opinion about the manner in which the labor traffic is conducted, and about the recruiters' evasions of the law of the traffic, and about the traffic itself, and it is distinctly uncomplimentary to the traffic, and to everything connected with it, including the law for its regulation. Captain Wawn's book is of very recent date. I have by me a pamphlet of still later date, hot from the press, in fact, by Reverend William Gray, a missionary, and the book and the pamphlet taken together make exceedingly interesting reading, to my mind. Interesting and easy to understand, except in one detail which I will mention presently. It is easy to understand why the Queensland sugar planter should want the Kanaka recruit. He is cheap, very cheap, in fact. These are the figures paid by the planter. £20 to the recruiter for getting the Kanaka, or catching him, as the missionary phrase goes; £3 to the Queensland government for superintending the importation; £5 deposited with the government for the Kanaka's passage home when his 3 years are up, in case he shall live that long; about £25 to the Kanaka himself for 3 years' wages and clothing; total payment for the use of a man 3 years, £53, or, including diet, £60, altogether $100 a year. One can understand why the recruiter is fond of the business. The recruit costs him a few cheap presents, given to the recruit's relatives, not to the recruit himself, and the recruit is worth £20 to the recruiter when delivered in Queensland. All this is clear enough, but the thing that is not clear is what there is about it all to persuade the recruit. He is young and brisk. Life at home in his beautiful island is one lazy, long holiday to him, or if he wants to work he can turn out a couple of bags of copra per week and sell it for 4 or 5 shillings a bag. In Queensland he must get up at dawn and work from 8 to 12 hours a day in the cane fields, in a much hotter climate than he is used to, and get less than 4 shillings a week for it. I cannot understand his willingness to go to Queensland. It is a deep puzzle to me. Here is the explanation, from the planter's point of view. At least I gather from the missionary's pamphlet that it is the planter's. When he comes from his home he is a savage, pure and simple. He feels no shame at his nakedness and want of adornment. When he returns home he does so well dressed, sporting a Waterbury watch, collars, cuffs, boots, and jewelry. He takes with him 1 or more boxes (box is English for trunk), well filled with clothing, a musical instrument or two, and perfumery and other articles of luxury he has learned to appreciate. For just one moment we have a seeming flash of comprehension of the Kanaka's reason for exiling himself. He goes away to acquire civilization. Yes, he was naked and not ashamed. Now he is clothed and knows how to be ashamed. He was unenlightened. Now he has a Waterbury watch. He was unrefined. Now he has jewelry, and something to make him smell good. He was a nobody, a provincial. Now he has been to far countries and can show off. It all looks plausible, for a moment. Then the missionary takes hold of this explanation and pulls it to pieces, and dances on it, and damages it beyond recognition. Admitting that the foregoing description is the average one, the average sequel is this: the cuffs and collars, if used at all, are carried off by youngsters who fasten them round the leg just below the knee as ornaments. The Waterbury, broken and dirty, finds its way to the trader, who gives a trifle for it; or the inside is taken out, the wheels strung on a thread and hung around the neck. Knives, axes, calico, and handkerchiefs are divided among friends, and there is hardly one of these apiece. The boxes, the keys often lost on the road home, can be bought for 2 shillings 6 pence. They are to be seen rotting outside in almost any shore village on Tanna. I speak of what I have seen. A returned Kanaka has been furiously angry with me because I would not buy his trousers, which he declared were just my fit. He sold them afterwards to one of my Aniwan teachers for 9 pence worth of tobacco, a pair of trousers that probably cost him 8 shillings, or 10 shillings in Queensland. A coat or shirt is handy for cold weather. The white handkerchiefs, the Senet perfumery, the umbrella, and perhaps the hat are kept. The boots have to take their chance if they do not happen to fit the copra trader. Senet on the hair, streaks of paint on the face, a dirty white handkerchief round the neck, strips of turtle shell in the ears, a belt, a sheath and knife, and an umbrella constitute the rig of returned Kanaka at home the day after landing. A hat, an umbrella, a belt, a neckerchief, otherwise stark naked. All in a day the hard-earned civilization has melted away to this. And even these perishable things must presently go. Indeed, there is but a single detail of his civilization that can be depended on to stay by him. According to the missionary, he has learned to swear. This is art, and art is long, as the poet says. In all countries the laws throw light upon the past. The Queensland law for the regulation of the labor traffic is a confession. It is a confession that the evils charged by the missionaries upon the traffic had existed in the past, and that they still existed when the law was made. The missionaries make a further charge, that the law is evaded by the recruiters, and that the government agent sometimes helps them to do it. Regulation 31 reveals two things: that sometimes a young fool of a recruit gets his senses back after being persuaded to sign away his liberty for 3 years, and dearly wants to get out of the engagement and stay at home with his own people, and that threats, intimidation, and force are used to keep him on board the recruiting ship and to hold him to his contract. Regulation 31 forbids these coercions. The law requires that he shall be allowed to go free, and another clause of it requires the recruiter to set him ashore, per boat, because of the prevalence of sharks. Testimony from Rev. Mr. Gray. There are wrinkles for taking the penitent Kanaka. My first experience of the traffic was a case of this kind in 1884. A vessel anchored just out of sight of our station. Word was brought to me that some boys were stolen, and the relatives wished me to go and get them back. The facts were, as I found, that 6 boys had rushed into the boat, the government agent informed me. They had all signed, and said the government agent, "On board they shall remain." I was assured that the 6 boys were of age and willing to go. Yet on getting ready to leave the ship I found 4 of the lads ready to come ashore in the boat. This I forbade. One of them jumped into the water and persisted in coming ashore in my boat. When appealed to, the government agent suggested that we go, and leave him to be picked up by the ship's boat, a quarter-mile distant at the time. The law and the missionaries feel for the repentant recruit, and properly, one may be permitted to think, for he is only a youth, and ignorant, and persuadable to his hurt, but sympathy for him is not kept in stock by the recruiter. Rev. Mr. Gray says, "A captain many years in the traffic explained to me how a penitent could be taken. When a boy jumps overboard, we just take a boat and pull ahead of him, then lie between him and the shore. If he has not tired himself swimming and passes the boat, keep on heading him in this way. The dodge rarely fails. The boy generally tires of swimming, gets into the boat of his own accord, and goes quietly on board." Yes, exhaustion is likely to make a boy quiet. If the distressed boy had been the speaker's son, and the captors savages, the speaker would have been surprised to see how differently the thing looked from the new point of view. However, it is not our custom to put ourselves in the other person's place. Somehow there is something pathetic about that disappointed young